Obama's ill-starred war follows the selfsame scenario, featured in every history since Homer. A grudge, such as 9/11 or Helen of Troy's abduction, dresses naked plunder as a righteous cause. Thus, U.S. Joint Chiefs, unthreatened by Afghan goat herds, announce no ceiling on troop levels in Afghanistan. Then they slaughter those objecting to their seizing the region's oil and shipping it across the world to feed their empire. The U.S. renegade General Smedley Butler confessed in War is a Racket. The 33 years which I spent in active military service was as a high-class muscle man for big business, Wall Street, and bankers. In short, I was a racketeer and a gangster for capitalism. I helped make Mexico safe for American oil interests in 1914. In China, in 1927, I saw that Standard Oil was unmolested. I'd have given Capone a few hints. He only covered 3 districts, whereas I could operate the racket on 3 continents. In 1931, the heroic Butler alleged that Mussolini had struck a child in a hit-and-run accident, thus angering the Italian government. Cravenly, President Hoover ensured that Butler was court-martialed for his offense to fascism, or to capitalism plus violence. The same isms that guide an oil-hungry empire and its armed forces, cynically sanctioned by the U.S.'s Congressional Ship of State, whose crew members are regularly corrupted by corporate lobbyists, and whose missiles leave murdered children in their wake. For corruption, take Vice President Cheney, a CEO of Halliburton, whose 2000 income from this war contractor was $36,086,635. Halliburton's government contracts increased on his watch by 91%, and accounting irregularities under Cheney were $100 million. To secure the 21 million barrels of oil a day the U.S. devours, its Ahabs commit themselves to killing millions of Moby Dicks, ignoring a world that sees it as a self-righteous, morally bankrupt country that believes that might is right. Ahab's Pequod writ large. In 1988, on the 3rd of July, the USS Vincennes, a missile cruiser in the Persian Gulf, shot down an Iranian airliner and killed 290 civilian passengers. George Bush Sr. said, "I will never apologize for the United States." And he would boorishly add, "I don't care what the facts are." "I will never apologize for the United States of America," said the president of the Bush crime family, and he'd take the same line on his bulldozing thousands of burnt Iraqis into mass graves in his own oil war, boasting his Iraq victory kept gas prices cheap at the pumps. Predictably seething underneath the surface are those connected, past and present, to a huge body of imperial victims, indiscernibly flexing their muscles, ready to rise like a whale's tail and to thrash devastatingly up through the surface. Just as Ahab's boasting of the unsurrendered spires of the Pequod didn't prevent their destruction as his ship sank in a huge vortex, those tempting Providence by perpetually crowing, "The U.S. is the greatest," would see New York's spires become the target of a telling rage. Elias Canetti called paranoia the illness of power for its hallucinated reality. Thus, a president can insist his wars a necessity to stop another 9/11. But to pretend that Pashtun villages are terrorist crucibles and to bomb them is to pretend that 9/11 was hatched in Helmand and not in Hamburg. The president forgets 9/11 was payback for what the U.S. did from their Saudi bases. For hadn't Osama bin Laden said as much? Bin Laden resented the terror bombings launched by the U.S. from his own country, killing fellow Muslims in Iraq for 11 years. Rather than its being an attack on freedom and democracy, as the US indignantly claimed. The buildings singled out were strategic choices. The Pentagon represented a colonizing power, and the Twin Towers were corporate emblems of the cold-hearted appropriations of US capitalism. Leaving aside right and wrong, as the US ritually does, the logic of 9/11 was that a warmongering empire using more resources than the whole world together was admonished. It was cut down to size for having grown into a monster to whom no one said no. The president's former cleric, whom he'd disowned on rising to power, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, spelled it out very clearly. We bombed Hiroshima, we bombed Nagasaki, and we nuked far more than the thousands killed in New York and the Pentagon. And we never batted an eye, he said. We have supported state terrorism against the Palestinians and black South Africans, and now we are indignant because the stuff we have done overseas is now brought right back into our own front yards. Why do they hate us? Was the United States' aggrieved response to someone daring to attack a country that worshipped violence, a country that had persuaded itself it's superior to the rest of the world. Witness the stadium crowds chanting USA as disturbing proof. Indeed, there are many reasons to hate America. Zayuddin Sada and Merrill Davis cited principally that it has simply made it too difficult for other people to exist in their book, Why Do People Hate America? Equally, people who treat other people as less than human, James Baldwin said in The Fire Next Time, can't be surprised when bread they've cast on the waters comes floating back to them poisoned. Likewise, when Faisal Shahzad attempted to bomb Times Square, he'd say in a pre-recorded video in 2010, this attack on the United States will be a revenge attack on the US for terrorizing the Muslim nations. Callously suborning its own citizens into dying daily for oil, the US state treats their deaths like an insects that are splattered on the windscreen of every car, a graphic reminder that death fuels a car's pistons. In Catch-22, Lieutenant Milo Minderbender boasts, we're going to come out of this war rich. Then Yossarian retorts, you're going to come out rich? We're going to come out of it dead. One Wall Street tycoon has said, oil is almost like money, forgetting that beneath every fortune flows a crime. Oil's toxic pollution sours the sea, and it spawns tumors, malignant stalactites that grow through a man's brain. The petrol gases from bitumen, constantly burning in Babylon, led once to Zoroastrian fire worship. The cult persists as oil burning, its rituals ring-fenced by oil wars, and its fanatical consumerism rebranded as progress. Progress that allows the former president of Ford Motors, then chairman of Chrysler, Lee Iacocca, to ask, how much clean air do we need? While, thanks to him, the world's lungs are seizing up with emphysema. That a docile tax-paying pseudo-democracy accepts everything, paying $3 trillion since 2001 for wars against terror that are, in fact, wars for their country's oil. For oil war is how US business does business.